We are live. Although when people are seeing this, it won't be live, right? So we're live to tape. How's that? I'm in a mood right now, people. So
I'll say.
yeah. Hi, everybody. This is season 2, episode 3. And Nicole, should I let everyone know that the network has signed us for 5 more seasons? So we're going to be doing this for several years.
Mazel tov, y'all.
That's all I had, Nicole. It's all yours.
Hey, so today we're joined by, season 2, episode 3. Since the last time we recorded, I was clueless as to how many of these things we've done. But here we are, and we are joined by, I'm really excited. I'm going to do a little table drum roll. Russ Agdern. So I am really happy to have Russ joining us here today because I think Russ, to me, kind of exemplifies the joyful spirit that so many people who love Jazz Fest really, he's just a really good emblematic person of all of that. I'll let him talk about himself. Russ, we're so happy to see you in more than 2 dimensions.
Man, it is so great to see you guys, and congrats again on the renewal. May you do the show as long as you want and then some. It sounds like a nice old Yiddish curse. I promise it's not.
We want to beat 2 shows, Ed Sullivan Show and the Lawrence Welk Show. as long as we go. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You are in a mood today, Chris.
I love it. Bring it
on. So Russ, tell us about how you got started going to Jazz Fest. When was your first one? How'd you get there?
Yeah. So first, I think I don't know if there's a big community of threadheads that also are musicians, like to play and sing on their own. I imagine there's probably a ton of us, I play saxophone and I sing badly, but loudly and energetically. And, music has just always been a real thing. And, growing up playing, learning about jazz, of course, learning about Louis Armstrong, right? Learning about trad jazz and Sidney Bechet and all of that. And then getting a little hipper, getting a little older, having my high school guitarist hand me one of those, Memorex cassettes that said, "Look a Pie Pie" on it. I'm like, what the hell is this shit? But, it was amazing. And digging into the meters. And then, of course, one of my first club show in New York City as a high school kid was actually going to see the Funky Meters and the Dirty Dozen brass band at a place called Tramps, Zichrono Livracha. Unfortunately, it's no longer with us. But it was just this incredible show. And I'm just getting to see Press Hall, whether at the Tarrytown Music Hall, I grew up outside the city of Tarrytown, or at the Jazz Standard, which is now also unfortunately closed, or at Joe's Pub, seeing Alan play Joe's Pub gigs in the early 2000s while he was up there. And just, I always loved the music. And I had a friend who lived down the street from me named Krista, who now lives there, has an awesome jewelry business, Queen's Metal. Check it out. I got to give her some love because she's amazing. And she and her husband almost always put Marissa and I in a line up. In 2006, her brothers are both piano players, loves Cleary. In 2006, she started talking to me about going to Jazz Fest. She was like, I think I want to, we talked about music a lot. She lived on my block. She was like, I think I want to go. And I was like, isn't it a little crazy down there right now? They're still rebuilding, it's I just had that. They're just dealing with the incredibly incompetent federal government. She's like, I think I'm going to do it. It's in May of 2007. I'm going to go. Do you want to come? And I was like, oh, I do, but I'm not going to. And then, of course, she came back and she regaled me. I think we all do, right? The first time you go, even if it's the 10th time you go, maybe by the 10th time you've mellowed out a little, but the first several times it's you're an evangelical for this thing. It's the community, food. The community sometimes for some of us we find it later, right? But the music, the food, the nonstop energy of it in like one of the most important historical cities in North America, right? Like where else are you going to get this thing? So she worked on me, and then they announced the lineup in 2008, and Stevie Wonder was at the top of the bill, and I was like, all right, fine, I'm going. And it was amazing. It was just, and you don't really know what you're getting yourself into. I didn't even I had her, she had been to one other. I had a dear friend of mine who I stayed with who lived in New Orleans at the time. But like I knew the music that I already knew, but I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And it's just like, and it's like, where do you fucking start? It was incredible. Obviously, I loved it. I've come back, 12 times. I haven't missed one yet. Elijah also hasn't missed one yet. And so he's doing better than me because he's been to 7. But, I just want him to have every advantage. Or no, I think he's been to 5, right? Because of our current pause, right? I just want him to have every advantage in life, like, I want to give him the things I didn't have, like going to Jazz Fest every year of his life until he decides to run screaming from it.
Oh, I want to ask you, you mentioned the Stevie Wonder show in 2008. I saw that too. The next question, by the way, I want to show our viewers, we actually are scripted. We're very tight on what we can say and what we can't say. But I want to ask you, was Stevie Wonder one of your favorite shows you ever saw?
At the fairgrounds, gentle viewers, you should know that I also got to see those questions beforehand. But much like your first Jazz Fest, it's like, if you've been going for 12 years, how do you pick highlights? How do you pick best?
Yeah, whatever comes to mind.
Right? No, for sure. I mean, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. But like, it's like, what am I going to do? Like, I mean, that set, it was my first time seeing him. And I don't know if you remember the weather, Chris, from that set, but it was raining, and then it stopped.
Yeah.
And the sun came out, and like, I was towards the front on the path, like kind of halfway up the path. And it was pretty jammed, and people were like a little pressed. And, most times people go with the flow. Sometimes if it's a big artist and the stage is crowded, people get a little grumpy. But when the sun broke out, it was just like an incredible magic moment. But was Stevie one of my top highlights from 2008? There are others that I could think of that were somehow better. I had never heard of Deacon John in my life. And just like, the talent is immense across the whole lineup, top to bottom. And, I saw, when I saw him for the first time, and he did, he covered, like he does most times, he covered Many Rivers to Cross. When you start seeing that, it's like, you're just like, it's like right in your chest, just like right in your guts. Oof. The other really big highlight, I think the thing that probably was as instrumental as me becoming like a Jazz Fest devotee as anything else, was seeing Papa Henry and the Steeman Syncopators at Donna's at like, it was probably like at one of the 11 o'clock, or it wasn't like the super late show, but it was a later show. And it was like, again, dude I'd only heard of because of a friend of mine. The rest of the band, it was like Evan was on clarinet, and I think Mark Brode was on trumpet, and Nick Payton's dad, Walter Payton, the late Walter Payton, amazing bass player. I think Gerald French was on drums. It was like an all-star lineup. And who's this dude on the piano? it was Henry Butler. And it was like, it was trad jazz unlike anything I'd ever heard, with incredible, like monstrous virtuosity. And you have an all-star band like that, and it was like they were barely holding the line for him, right? Like that was how good he was. And obviously those are all monster players who I would cheerfully fork over, good money to go see play a concert anytime. But like, he was just like, it was like, who is this alien? And like understands, like my first Jazz Fest, I was 31, right? It was 2008, actually I was 30 and a half, good thing I can count. It's not like I hadn't spent a decade plus of my life seeing as much live music as I could muster. It wasn't like I was some newbie who was like, oh, I'll give New Orleans a try. You know what I mean? Like, but it was just like, where have I been? How have I missed all this?
You made me think of something else before we go to the next question. You said that you mentioned going to a late show that maybe started at 11 or 12 or whatever. I'm curious because I'm a early riser and I go to bed really early. What time do you, when you're in New Orleans going to Jazz Fest and you're out at the night shows? So it's a two-part question. One, how late do you stay out? And two, what time do you get to the fairgrounds in the morning?
This is a great question. It has a two-part answer. It has a 2014 and before answer, and it has a 2015 to present answer. Pre-Elijah, I would try to sleep as much as I possibly could in the weeks leading up to Jazz Fest. Because I would typically be out pretty much every night I was there till 3, 4, 5 in the morning. Maybe later, depending on who's playing and how late they're going. But then I would do my best to be at the fairgrounds no later than noon every day.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I was a nut job.
That's some good stamina.
Well, it's funny because I'm an administrator. I'm a Facebook administrator for another group. This group called Jazz Fest Funk. And it's funny because it's like, this is like the controversial tug of war, right? You've got the like out of town bands and musicians that come. And there's this incredible night scene, some of which works really well and really hard to incorporate the musicians of New Orleans, some of which does less of that, and a lot of the folks in this group, this Jazz Fest Funk group, are more focused on that late night scene.
Right.
So I can't tell you how many times I've written on Facebook posts like, don't miss the fairgrounds, because the fairgrounds to me is as important, if not more important, right? Like, where are you, random white person from someplace America, gonna go, and hear the Zion harmonizers, right? Where are you gonna go hear Irma Thomas sing gospel, right? Where are you gonna go? You're not gonna go hear, Nathan and the Zydeco Cha-Chas, but they'll blow your head off with the amazing stuff they do, right? Like, it's just like, why would you miss that? Why would you come here to do the things that you could see on Jam Cruise? To be clear, Jam Cruise is, I hear, amazing. They have great musicians and there's a lot of fun stuff. And I go to plenty of those night shows, but like, I'm in New Orleans to be in New Orleans, right? Like I've started like doing things where like I've gone off the beaten path for myself and forced myself to go to venues that I don't normally go to and try to only hear certain New Orleans musicians, make sure I'm catching, like our friend, Mr. Johnson III. He doesn't come up to New York. No. I gotta hear him play that sax.
Yeah.
Since Elijah, I've had to tamper down. I've had to I've had to manage it a little bit more. But I still try to catch at least 1 or 2 night shows, each night. And I still there will be only usually 1 or 2 super late nights. Most of the nights I try to I try to like not be too crazy because like, you know, want to also spend time with Elijah and Marissa in the morning. But we try to get to the fairgrounds as early as we can, especially with him. It'll be interesting to be doing it with him. You know, like last time he was there, he was not yet 5. So it's going to be interesting to be going with a almost 8-year-old, you know, 7.5-year-old.
He's probably ready for a Bloody Mary at Lauz's.
You know,
Anyway.
or at least a good frozen cafe au lait, you know, like
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
a little
you might
hyper.
be ready for a little sip of that.
Yeah.
Speaking of a frozen cafe au lait, what's the first thing you do when you get to the fairgrounds each day?
Most days I get a strawberry smoothie and I go sit in the gospel tent. It for me, it's the best way to get there. I think like an obvious exception, especially in these more recent years, as I know more and more of the musicians, is like if there's a set I'm really looking forward to, first thing I'll beeline that. But average day, that's the first thing. Even if it's like just 10 minutes to sip, hear some incredible gospel, and then look down at my cubes and be like, okay, where are we headed next?
Mm-hmm.
Those strawberry smoothies, man, they keep me going. I get at least one a day. It feels like it's almost like a vegetable, right? It's like fruit, right? Like there's some nutrients in that. It's like the only thing with nutrients, that and the spinach salad, you know?
Yeah, and like the chopped up strawberries and the strawberry lemonade, those count.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure
Mhm.
there are like micrograms of vitamin C in those drinks. Yeah.
Microdosing your vitamin C. Got it.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm not a scientist, but I think that your body absorbs those microdoses of vitamin C better if you're at Jazz Fest.
Definitely.
I think that's the story we should tell. Yeah. I like that. Tell us about your association with the Threadheads. When did you learn the term Threadheads?
So it's funny. I feel like I found the grids, or maybe a friend of mine who knew some shit that I didn't, connected me to the grids pretty, I think, if not my first year, definitely by my second, but I think even in my first. So I knew about the grids. And then at some point I stumbled into the boards, you know, and I mostly just chatted with folks online, but I didn't connect with people, in part because I was always second weekend, and it took a very long time for me to, not very long, 3 or 4 years. It took a few years for me to like extend the trip long enough that I could actually come to the Patry and start putting faces to names. But so like, I think like it in 2000, I think my first Patry was in 2012. The Lionel Furbos was the first set that year, I think. And I remember going and being like, holy crap, this dude's 100. And here he is blessing us with music and sounds pretty damn good. Like, shit, I wish I could sound anything like this when I'm 50, you know? It was the coming to the Patry, you know, after like chatting with folks and getting a little bit of a feel for people online. But as we all know, especially in these last 2 years, online and in person, 2 different things, very different. Getting to be at the Patry was really, it was just like, I felt like, all right, okay, these are my people, right? Like, these are the folks, this is the place. And like, here I am. And I started like, you know, in my numerous amount of spare time, I organize a few Jewish community things here in Brooklyn. And I'm kind of like, if I see a community that I want to be a part of, I want to pitch in. So like, I was like, oh, we need to schlep chairs, and oh, we need to do this thing, and oh, okay, sure, I'll staff the table. What do I need to do? I just sort of threw myself in with the kind of just day of pitching in stuff. Just like the work that Threadheads have been doing has just been incredible, and like to get to be a little part of it every now and then is pretty great.
Yep, absolutely.
So you mentioned seeing Lionel Furbus at the Patry. Do you have any other standout Patry moments that you want to share with us?
Yeah, there are two that jumped to mind when I saw this question. The first one that I thought of was, I want to say 2014 or 2015, or maybe no, it wasn't 2016. The year that that John Boutte and Paul and, oh gosh, I just lost the guitar, the other guitar player that passed. Yeah, Todd.
Yeah.
They did so not the first year that John and Paul were at the Patry, because I wasn't there yet, but they did American Tune. And my buddy Mark Millman was there and recorded it, and you could hear me like yell yes, like when he started into it. And it was just like, I mean, like, this is why we do it, right? Like, this is like moments like that. It was just amazing. Really, you know, and then, you know, whenever John covers it, he changes the line at the end. We came on the ship they call the Amistad. And that was the first time I heard it make that change. I was like, oh, that's some new level.
Yeah.
That's some new level stuff that a yid from Queens wasn't going to come up with, you know, like.
I think that was my first Patry as well. And I remember rolling in and hearing Paul and John and Todd Duke performing, and what stands out to me was the beauty of the music, but also like the beauty of the day. I don't know if you remember, it was one of those like sparkling, beautiful blue sky mornings.
Yeah.
And I walked in to this event and I like sat down, Chris and I sat down like on the ground in front of everyone. And I like was like, what is going on here? Like, it's 11 a.m. or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And this beautiful thing is happening and I'm here. Oh,
Was that,
stuff.
I know I was there, but was that one on Frenchman Street, or was that when it moved?
That was at the Ironworks.
That was at the Ironworks.
It was at the Ironworks. Okay.
The first few that I went to were at the Ironworks. I mean, I think that like the new house is great for where we are now, especially like just thinking about the numbers, how many people were there in 2019. 2019 was crazy. There's the like giant threadhead display banner. It's like, okay, well, the secret is out. The Ironworks. The other moment from the Ironworks that was kind of, I remember with a chuckle, and also maybe a little bit of like, I don't want to say like humility, but like a little bit of like chagrin, but you know, just because thinking about the state of America as a country. I was working the entry, like ticket entry, when George Porter came up. Now, you know, George Porter Jr. is like a bedrock of music, and like somebody that like before I ever even thought about going to Jazz Fest, I knew who the fuck he was, right? So like I made a joke, and I was like, excuse me, sir, I'm gonna need to see some ID to George Porter Jr. And he like, without saying a word, took out his wallet, started like, I was like, George, no, I'm sorry. I'm kidding. You're George Porter Jr. I know who you are. Please come in.
Did you charge him though?
No, he was on the list. But like the thing about New Orleans that is there's so many things about it that make it so special. And just like, it's the kind of community. I'm going to go off script for a second just because I'm thinking about crazy moments. I don't know why this made me think of it, but like my first Jazz Fest, I am sitting in Willie Mae's Scotch House, having a little plate of fried chicken before going to get my plane. I have a couple of hours, and like this crazy funk song comes on the radio. And it's like got like it's got like popping horns. It's got a fast beat. It's got a lot of stuff going on. I like really busy music. I listen to Mingus and Afrobeat and stuff like that. That's one of the things I love most about just about all varieties of New Orleans music. So there's a lot of density. This song had a lot of density, high energy horns, guitar, keys. It was just really moving. And I was like, what was that song? And I was like, all right, it's a radio station. They're gonna say what song it was, right? And I waited and waited and waited. I never could hear what song it was. And it was like WWOZ, right? Obviously. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm never going to figure out what that song was. That's fine. So I went down to go down into the quarter for one last time. And I found a parking spot, and I was just sort of walking around, and I look up and there's the sign for WWOZ. And I'm like, I could ask, right? They're going to say no, right? Nobody's going to, I'm some guy, who are they going to let in? And so I see the security guard, and he's like, may I help you? And I start going on about the song, and it sounds so good. And I was just wondering if maybe somebody upstairs could help me figure it out. And the guy's like, oh yeah, man, just go on up. I was like, I'm clearly not in New York City. They don't just let random dudes off the street who are rambling on about a song. And so I walk in, and the OZ office looks probably like you'd expect it to look the day after Jazz Fest, right? It's a little bit messy. There's some stuff kind of all over the place. And I walk in, and somebody's like, can I help you? And I'm like, I start rambling on about the song, and they're like, oh, that wasn't the current DJ. I think that was, because now we're in the blues set. So, but why don't we go back to the booth and see if we could talk, maybe the DJ's still here and we can go find them. So I'm like, some dude, they took me into the back, and they bring me in, and the DJ's like, hey, sorry, man, that other person left, but maybe their sheets are here. I am in the OZ booth. They pulled the sheets out from the previous set to look through to try to figure out and finally we found it, and it was a song called Dozen Land by Big Sam's Funky Nation. And of course I went and I bought that album before I got on my plane. And my buddy who lived there at the time, said to me, you didn't have a plane to fly. They probably would have, they probably would have had you over for dinner too. And I was just like, people are into people that are into the music. If you're kind and you're respectful and you care, there's community to be had around Jazz Fest and in New Orleans. And you got to give kavod, you got to give props and honor to the traditions, right? But if you're genuine, folks are into it.
I think that's one of the, oh, go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead.
I think that's one of the things that really speaks to me about this community and how I felt like I fit into it, because I feel like many of the sort of spheres that I rolled in, and not friend groups, because my friends are awesome, but little pockets of people that I rolled with, there's a cynicism, especially living in a big city, and it's a generational thing too. We don't have to get too deep into that, but I just really, really love, and it really makes me feel good, deeply in my soul, that the community of people that really love Jazz Fest really don't care what you think about the fact that they love Jazz Fest. It's not this is my new style thing or whatever. If they really dig a song or really dig an artist, it does not matter where that came from, what they look like, what they dress like, or anything like that. It's just pure enjoyment. And I really love that. And it's taught me to be more, music is subjective, right? Just because I don't like something or it's not for me, it doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean, because somebody else loves it. And maybe the person who made it just loves it. And that's enough for me. Sorry. I didn't mean to hijack.
No, that's great. That's great. I feel like I like this as a conversation too. So. Yeah, do it.
So you talked a little bit already about how taking your son to Jazz Fest changed your hours, that you weren't the night owl that you were before you had a child. But we're curious about how it's been taking your son to Jazz Fest itself. And if you have any tips for parents who have not taken their kids and want to take their kids to Jazz Fest.
For sure, for sure. So, you know, it's funny, in 2014, we had a moment, I had a moment where I was thinking, oh gosh, like, how am I going to do this with a baby? And Marissa was like 5 months pregnant. And she's like, look, go. You can even go longer than you normally do. Don't know what this is going to be like. And I'm 5 months pregnant. I don't want to run around the fairgrounds. But you go, have fun, see your friends, do your thing. And that was the first year that I noticed just how many children are at the fairgrounds. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until Marissa was 5 months pregnant, I was like, oh shit, there's a lot of babies here. Mm-hmm. Obviously, like, I love Elijah dearly. I have never been one of these, parenthood is perfection, and I am my fully realized self now that I'm a parent, and everything I do is for him, and it's a dream, and it's perfect. Like, I've never been that person, never been that parent. I love him. I love being a parent. Sometimes it's a fucking struggle. I think like the trick I think there are a couple of things you can do as a parent. First, bring lots of snacks. Bring lots of the snacks that they like, because as much as you love the food, they may not like the food, And there is that one little kids area, which has gotten better and more populated over the years. So we want to bring lots of snacks, get them into the music that you like, and or find things that they like that are going to be at the fairgrounds. It's like every year beforehand, starting a couple months beforehand, I would just like throw together some like random playlists and see what things Elijah was into. And then try to make a point of getting him to catch those things. I like the tents a lot. I especially love, I always love Economy Hall, but Economy Hall is like, it's great kind of music. It's not super loud. There are almost always seats and space, and there are random people up dancing around, right? So like you too and your toddler could be dancing around and doing a second line to get some shakes out, or, Elijah was like running and flying into us, on that little dance floor back there. And like understand that it's not going to be the way it was. But if you do it right, you're going to have a kid who's like, Tata, we're going to Jazz Fest this year, right? Those are the biggest things. Just like remember that it's not, you're not going to be able to go to all the shows you want. You may even have to miss a set you don't want to miss, or you may have to take the kid home to nap so your wife can see the Who. Like, these are the things that we do, but if you do them right, you can like help get a Jazz Fest person out of your kid too. You help turn them into a believer.
Thank you for that.
It completely warms my heart whenever I spot you guys out at the fairgrounds. Like, I guess it's because like I've been aware of Elijah since he was a toddler, and have overheard your anxieties early on about taking him to the fairgrounds and keeping him, busy and hoping that he loves it or enjoys it. And then whenever I see you guys out there having a blast, it's the best. It makes everything better. It makes everything that's going on so much nicer to see that Elijah's digging it too.
Oh, thank you for that. One more thing. One more parent tip, which is like all the folkways, like there's a lot of cool folkways shit. That stuff was a hit with him. The blacksmiths, when he was like, the year that he was like 1.5, he fucking loved we were like watching the blacksmiths for like a half hour. And it was great because it was right by Fade Odo, everybody was happy. It was the year that Los Lobos was on Fade Odo. Like I'm listening to one of my favorite bands and my kid is watching a guy smack a red hot piece of metal. Life is grand.
I love that. That's
Before
amazing.
we ask our last question, I just want to say Los Lobos is one of my favorite bands too. They're incredible,
So
truly
good.
incredible. Yeah, I'm lucky because they're from here, and
Yeah.
so I get to see them a lot. Yeah, they're great.
And there was one year, there was a year, a few years ago, was it, Roosevelt Collier sit in with them at the Blues Tent? Trying to remember. There was one
I don't
set they
remember.
did at the Blues Tent. It was a few years ago that was just absolute bonkers. And they always show up to play when they play at the fairgrounds, but that set sticks out too.
Amazing band.
I unfortunately missed that. But so now that we have a lineup, Russ, this is where you really shine. Who should we see? Give us some, I don't know if you want to offer some like bigger names in addition to your, wealth of local picks. I'll leave it up to you, man.
Oh
You drive.
man, this is hard. This is like there's so much. I mean, I can tell you who. Let's see. I am going second weekend, so I do sort of a review for both, and like just sort of eyeball everything for both. But it's hard once I've looked at the first weekend and I'm like, oh fuck, I'm gonna miss this, that, and the other thing. I'm kind of like, I don't want to, I don't want to torture myself. One of the reasons we go second, when I've always gone second weekend, except for 1 year, is because I can't bear to leave a party that's still raging. And like leaving midweek before second weekend just feels like really the ultimate foams. You know what I mean? Okay. So let me give you some of my highlights that I'm really looking forward to for second weekend. And I know we're a little bit over the time, so I don't want to push too long. And so one thing that I'm really looking forward to second weekend, that may not be on everybody's radar, is Kari Allen Lee doing the music of Grover Washington. He's just such a monster, underrated monster in the jazz tent. And I think Grover Washington, some of his stuff is very smooth jazz and I'm not into it, but other bits of his catalog really find the like organ jazz, soul, funk jazz that I love. And like, I think that's going to be a tremendous set. I'm really looking forward to the Charlie Gabriel and Friends set second weekend. Something that's been really hard for me has been watching some of my favorite musicians start to pass. And like, I've had this sort of feeling of like, there's a phrase that goes around. And I remember John Batiste, I got to see John Batiste for Lundi Gras before all hell broke loose, in February of 2020. And he covered Pastime Paradise by Stevie Wonder. And then he said, we got to give our people their flowers while they're here. And it's like, I feel like that set is going to come after his first album has been released. Charlie Gabriel, his first album as a leader will have been released. Possibly a second album, which is not totally clear to me where it's at, may also be released later that year. And he'll be coming up on his 90th birthday. And like, if that's not going to be amazing, and one of the things that's sort of great about all of the sets in the Economy Hall, so many of the sets in the Economy Hall, you kind of get to see a lot of the same players, but that's amazing because they're all fucking awesome, right? It's like, who doesn't want to see 3 sets of Mark Brode, right? Like, I have to watch Joe Lasty play drums again. Oh, that's terrible. Like, who wants that? Who wants that? I am a big believer in Big Chief Juan Pardo. I am a big believer in him. I love his sets. One of my very favorite all-time sets was the year that he started his set like a regular set. And then he was like, I've been waiting to make this gumbo my whole life. My grandfather was a salsa musician, and my name is Juan Carlos Pardo. And then he brought a bunch of the Cuban drummers on and started doing Indian funk on top of their drumming. And it was like, it was amazing. It was so great. I have no idea what the Glenn David Andrews Orchestra is, but giving that guy an orchestra seems like a really good idea to me. Like the best idea, maybe. And yeah, it's like, I don't know how you guys do it. Like, I feel like there's a lot of things that just like, you see a random thing with a person whose name you recognize, and you're like, I don't know what that is, but that's going to be good. You know, like there's like a DeVell Crawford, the tribute listed second weekend. Who the fuck is that? Is it Booker tribute? Is it who? What kind of tribute is it? We don't know, but we know DeVell Crawford's doing it. So let's go see it.
Sometimes the best sets are when you're just walking from stage to stage or tent to tent, and you walk by the lanyap stage. Oh, that sounds good. Who's this?
Definitely.
Someone who you didn't circle on your cubes.
Yeah.
That you wind up skipping something else for. So
for sure. And I think like that's, to me, something I really try to challenge myself to do, which is harder and harder because after 12 fests, I got a lot of people I already know that are really amazing and that I want to hear. But I also always want to try to challenge myself to hear folks I don't know, to try to catch something new.
It's what's the beginner's mind in Buddhism? Oh God, now I'm having a senior moment. I'm blanking on what it is. Oh, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the experts, there are a few. So if you go into jazz fest with beginner's mind, like this is all new. Let's take it as it comes. So
yeah, definitely.
That's my Buddhist wisdom for the day.
Well, we'll see if I can actually get there when I'm standing and listening. Please remove your bags as we're getting ready to get in.
We are way over time here, and I've got to be somewhere.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
And it's like we need to cut this off because I wasn't planning on sticking around for second weekend, which is always a joke with me. Everyone knows that I always end up saying I'm not going to stay or going, whatever. You know, I always end up there for the whole thing. And like I have the lineup open for the second weekend, and I'm like, how on this planet am I going to miss the Louis Armstrong's All-Star Tribute with Charlie Halloran?
Right.
We're just gonna have to put in for more time off of work,
right.
And we're gonna have to stay, and we're gonna have to see Charlie lead that group.
I mean, just on one random line in the middle, Herlin Riley, Nigel Hall, Preservation Brass, Mia Borders. That's just like one random line on the second weekend lineup, right? Like,
I think we may need to have Russ back on again before Fest in April, just to spend a half hour going over the lineup.
Oh man, would. If you're serious, I would totally do it. And if you're not,
maybe. Yeah, no. I'm very serious, and maybe have 2 or 3 people.
I think that would be really fun. And like if folks are watching this and they would be interested in having some folks, I know no one's an expert, we're all going with like beginner's eyes, whatever Buddhist thing you just coached us on, Chris, but there are some people who have I would love to have Russ come back and give us some tips. And then we have some folks who have different tastes, right? And different sets of knowledge who could point out some stuff. So let's do that. I love that idea.
Russ, thank you so much.
Oh man, this is like the most fun I've had in a while. Really, so great to talk to you. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. Hoping you get another 120 seasons.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to stop the record.